April the 6th, 1986, Gallup, New Mexico. A 9-year-old innocent girl, Antoinette Calladito, lived in her home with her mother, Penny, and her sisters. One night on April 6, 1986, Penny came home late from a bar. The children were already asleep. Antoinette, however, had fallen asleep in her mother's bed, right beside her. When Penny woke up the next morning, something felt wrong. The bed was empty. The door to the house was slightly open. There were no signs of a struggle, no broken windows, no forced entry, just a little girl, gone. The whole house was silent. It was as if everything had changed in a matter of minutes. Penny immediately called the police. Police began searching the area. Neighbors later reported that around 3 to 4 a.m., they had seen a brown truck parked outside the house. Then, a few months later, a possible sighting came in. A waitress at a restaurant said she had seen a young girl who looked exactly like Antoinette. The girl was sitting with a rough-looking, unkempt couple. Quiet, nervous. When the waitress went to clear the table, she noticed something chilling. Under the girl's plate, on a napkin, were the words, "Help me, call the police." But by the time the waitress realized what it meant, the couple and the girl were already gone. Then about a year later, in March 1987, something even more disturbing happened. At 3 a.m., the Gallup Police Department received a phone call. On the line was the frightened voice of a small girl. Her voice was shaking. She said, "Hello, this is Antoinette Calladito. I'm in Albuquerque. Please help me." She kept repeating her name again and again, almost like she was trying to make sure someone truly heard her. Then suddenly, in the background, an angry voice was heard. A man, or maybe a woman, shouting, "Who said you could use the phone?" The girl screamed, a heartbreaking, terrified scream, and then the call ended. The entire call lasted only 40 seconds. It was too short to trace. When Antoinette's mother, Penny, listened to the recording, she broke down in tears. She said, "It was her voice. I would know my baby's voice anywhere." She recognized the way Antoinette spoke, her pronunciation, even the sound of her scream. But police said the call was simply too short. They could not determine the location. And even today, more than 38 years later, Antoinette Calladito is still missing. No body was ever found, no kidnapper was ever caught, and the most haunting question remains. If that call was real, then Antoinette was alive at that moment, secretly begging for help. But the kidnapper heard her and stopped her. What if the call had lasted just 10 seconds longer? Could she have been saved? It's a thought that still keeps people awake at night. January 17th, 2008, Northport, Florida. 21-year-old Denise Amber Lee was a loving young mother. She had 2 little sons, one 2 years old and the other just 6 months old. Her husband, Nathan, worked 3 different jobs so Denise could stay home and care for the children. For them, it was a simple life built around family. That day started like any other. Denise was at home with the kids, going through her normal routine. But in the evening, something unimaginable happened. A man named Michael Lee King, who didn't even know Denise personally, forced his way into the house. He abducted her, tied her hands and feet, covered her mouth with duct tape, and dragged her into his car. The children were still inside the house, safe but alone. Denise was gone. When Nathan came home later, he found the children crying. Denise wasn't there. Panic set in immediately, and he called 911. The search began. But the real tragedy starts here. While she was trapped in the car, Denise managed to secretly call 911 using the kidnapper's phone. The call lasted 9 minutes, and during those 9 minutes, Denise showed incredible bravery. She spoke as if she were talking normally to the kidnapper, but in reality, she was giving hidden clues to the dispatcher. Her voice was calm but desperate. She said, "Please let me go. I just want to see my family again." During the call, she said the word "please" 17 times. She was pretending to plead with the kidnapper while actually answering the dispatcher's questions without being caught. At one point, she said quietly, "I'm Denise Lee. I can't see. I don't know where I am." In the background, the kidnapper's voice could suddenly be heard. Angry, suspicious. "Why did you do that?" At the same time, country music was playing inside the car. Despite the danger, Denise managed to describe the vehicle. She told them the make, model, and color. "It's a green or blue Camaro." The dispatcher received the information. But then, something went terribly wrong. There was miscommunication within the system. Information wasn't properly shared between different agencies, and there was another chance to save her. A witness had also called 911. A cousin reported that Michael King had a girl tied up inside his car. Even with all these warnings, police arrived too late. Denise was raped, tortured, and eventually murdered. Her body was later found in a swamp. Michael King was eventually caught. During the trial, Denise's 911 call was played in court. The judge said something that left the room in silence. It is rare to hear a victim's last words. Michael King was sentenced to death, but the most disturbing part of this story is what happened that day. There were 5 different 911 calls connected to the case. Denise herself gave crucial clues that could have helped find her, but because of communication failures, she wasn't saved. This case eventually led to major changes in the 911 emergency system in the United States. But for Denise, those changes came far too late. And the haunting question still remains. If even one of those calls had been handled properly, could Denise have been saved? 1980, Louisiana, real call, but a survivor twist. On the internet, a very famous and disturbing 911 call has circulated for years. It's often attributed to an elderly woman named Ruth Price. For a long time, many people believed it was a real recording of a live murder. The call goes something like this. An elderly woman's voice says, "Hello, 911. There's a man outside my house. He's prowling around, looking for an apartment or something." The dispatcher responds calmly, "Ma'am, stay on the line. Can you describe him?" Then suddenly, there's silence, and after that, horrifying screams. "No! No! Get away! Help!" You can hear the sounds of a struggle, footsteps, chaos, and then the line goes dead. For years, people believed they were listening to a woman's final moments, while the operator helplessly stayed on the line. Online, the audio spread everywhere and eventually turned into a creepypasta. Even today, people listen to it late at night and feel genuinely terrified. But here's the real twist. The call was real, but Ruth Price did not die. Back in 1980 in Louisiana, Ruth Price actually did call 911 to report a prowler outside her home. While she was speaking to the dispatcher, the attacker suddenly grabbed her from behind and began choking her. Ruth fought back. The phone dropped to the floor. She screamed, struggled, and somehow managed to break free from the attacker's grip. She ran away from the scene, and she survived. The attacker fled. After that terrifying incident, Ruth lived for another 14 years before eventually passing away from natural causes. However, the recording that went viral online isn't exactly the original call. The version most people hear today is an enhanced or dramatized recreation, created later based on the real incident, possibly for training purposes or as part of a hoax. In the real event, there were screams, yes, but they weren't as dramatic as the viral audio makes them sound. So the mystery has actually been solved. Ruth survived. But even knowing that, when people hear the recording today, it still sends chills down their spine. Because if Ruth hadn't managed to fight back in that moment, those desperate screams might have truly been the last sounds of her life. And in a way, these three stories remind us of something chilling. Sometimes just a few seconds, or the right communication, can mean the difference between life and death.